mark it at the 7-minute mark. Can you send me that in the text, please? That would be awesome. Live from the Bald Wookie, it's the 82nd Legion. This is your captain, and tonight we're back with a build from the workbench. This time, it is the NES. I believe, yeah, everybody should be able to hear me on this go around. This is attempt 2. Attempt 1, we're going to edit out of it in post. If you was here, you's here. So, go over a quick bit on the case mods that we have done so far to the factory NES case. Just the camera here just a little bit. And we have got about 2 hours worth of Dremel time in here as we went through and cut out supports and standoffs for the factory motherboard that was in here. And we also cut out the rigidity. Honestly, it was an expansion port slot because it was designed to have additional stuff attached to it from the Japanese version that we never got in the US. We done some 3D printed ports to go on the front to replace the factory controller ports. These will accept a USB. We're actually going to build those on. We're going to wire those up on string. On the back, we've done a bunch of cutting for an I/O shield. It came with a motherboard in this case. And we've also made clearance for our DisplayPort cable to pass through to the graphics card. Our power supply fan exhaust here, we've got a 3D printed part. It's actually currently on the printer that will clean up this gap right here. And over here, I'm trying to find some mic and audio ports to 3.5 millimeter jacks to go in over here. If not, I've got a panel printed that slips it all out. These pop out most of the time. You know what? Since it's an issue and we're live, we'll just go ahead and fix it. Holmes ain't playing games today. And get a little aggressive with it this time. It's going to be hidden, so it's not a crime. You know, sometimes it ain't what it looks like during the process, it's the final result that really matters. Hey, that fits a lot better. Perfect. The right amount of tension on both of those. We'll pop those out for now. Funny thing is, I have to build the cable and pass it through, or not. So we'll just take and cut it there and there. Kick that out. Those don't look terrible. And just slick it up. Round off some edges. And now we can just pass that cable through there, just like it should be anyway. And Alright, now that we've done a little bit of casework here, we're going to set it off to the side for just a moment, and we're going to pull out the real star of the show, and that's this guy. This is our Asus H81 motherboard. This was a it's of the mini ITX variety. It is Intel 4790S with a factory Intel cooler on it, 16 gigabytes of low profile RAM, and we had to do a little bit of modding. And this wound up being for power button clearance. We're not going to use these two SATA ports or this header here, so I wasn't afraid to clearance it for what I needed clearance for. Your motherboard may or may not require the same clearancing that mine had to have. I paid $82 or $83, shipped off eBay, and arrived in like 4 days. I booted it up that night and it worked. Prime candidate. It was budget friendly for everything but the SATA cable there was $82. The SATA cable put me at 90. We wanted a real short SATA cable because we didn't need, let's be real, it's hard to hide 18 inches of cable in this NES console. You'll soon see. And then, oh, well, you know what? We'll go ahead and hit the next big star of the show. No, that's not you. But we've done a bunch of modding to you as well. But that is our TF Skywind International 400 watt flex model 1U Flex 400 power supply. This particular supply has cables that's your 24 pin, that is your SATA and CPU power. Now, I do want to custom build these, or I'm going to buy some pins, and we're going to shorten these cables up as to just remove wire clutter in this thing in the future. We'll go live when we do that as well. I like the fact that I'm trying to, in the effort of keeping everything neat and tidy, this was one of those things that it's a cool little project, and when you can custom fit your cables, it works out. I mean, everything just winds up cleaner. Everybody likes a clean looking system. But yeah, it's a $45 power supply. I picked it up off eBay. Most of this build was eBay friendly. So in the future, we got some additional tips, tricks, and secrets coming soon. And the rest of the goodies. We'll set our USB in one of our fan candidates. Not sure that it's going to be the one I use. Go ahead and set all our screws and such back here. We did add. So currently this thing is set up on an HDMI, or not HDMI, set up with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. The motherboard did not include either from the factory. And the only thing we've really done on this case is we cut a spot for our power cable to pass through. This plastic panel is just setting off to the side. And like I said, this case is patinaed. It's got a broken section missing here, cigarette burn, but the door is there and it is complete and it works. The only thing we've done on the inside here is we cut that screw mounting block out for power supply clearance. We cut that one out just so it wouldn't interfere. And we're also looking at adding a fan back here with a 3D printed fan duct. So that was the quick overview of the top case mods. Let's get started. All right. You know what? First things first. Oh, we're not done yet. There's our graphics card, our Samsung 850 solid state drive, and where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Oh yeah, here we are. Our switches. So these are the factory NES switches. They've been turned upside down and have leads soldered to them so I can plug them into the factory motherboard. The power switch still depresses and holds itself in like it's supposed to. Unfortunately, it turns itself into a reset button if you don't let it out instantly after you press it. Working on a fix, haven't decided how I'm going to fix it yet. The LED works. The reset button resets it like it's supposed to. Let's just be real. It's hard to go wrong with a Samsung 860 EVO. And this is a 500 gig model. If I had my options, I would use an NVMe drive. The board does not support it. And the real fun is our RX 550 low profile graphics card. So one of the things that there just wasn't space for was the IO shield on the end down here. It was removed for clearance purposes. You'll see once we start the assembly process. So first things first, we'll set our parts back off to the side. All right, we're going to get our case out. Now I've drilled a couple of holes here, here, and here. You're going to ask, why didn't you drill the fourth hole? It's under here, and I don't want to remove the pad or mod the pad to make it work. So we're going to go ahead and drop our motherboard screws down through here. And we're going to put nuts on the back side because we actually want just a touch of spacer. So we got two in. Put our nuts in place. Dr. Santa, what are you doing this evening? I see you out there in chat. And take our, now I'm using 3mm screws here with just a standard nut. Heat, make you jokes now. And we're going to tighten that down. We're going to take this other one. You know, I'm not exactly the smallest of fingers for this task, but we know how to make do. They're agile. All right, that's number 2 and number 3. So we're going to leave, the motherboard winds up being trapped by the switches anyway. So that corner not having a screw, I am deeming okay. Yeah, you're getting a glimpse at some of the inner process of how this works and how I function with a desk that can barely be worked on. I mean, I've got parts and pieces laying on top of my keyboard for crying out loud. All right, now that we've got all those screws in place, we'll go ahead and drop the motherboard in. The screws are home for good. All right, this should, keyword should, fit like a glove. Boom. And what do you know? I wasn't wrong. It fit like a glove. I have ideas for that, but it's going to be for not this. Um, you're going to like where that goes. Um, that's going to be a fun experience. And man, you know what? I'll just put those other two. I'll put those other two fasteners in place at the end because it's not going to be too terribly bad. All right. So next thing's next. We'll turn this around and we'll go ahead and put our power switch in. Since there's not much that truly interferes with it. All right, everything's in place. Grab our screw, grab our screwdriver. You know, I'm struggling with this. And there's a pair of tweezers on my desk. Folks, use all your tools. And that also is a good PSA for keeping a clean and tidy workspace. That is a killer PSA for keeping a clean and tidy workspace. Alright, so I might find a second screw because none of those, I've lost a screw somewhere, but that one being missing right now isn't going to be the end of the world. Welcome to somewhat prototype assembling. Alright, next thing's next. Um, our power supply. So this bad boy, it lays in there right like so, but before I get too carried away, I'll leave those cables out of the way for right now. Let's go ahead and check clearances. So this is probably the hardest part of all this, is making sure that when you build something, that everything fits. There's just not much space. None. Like, none. No space whatsoever. And I know what you're saying. So what are you going to do? Well, we're going to work it out. First things first, we're going to see how far over that we can push the power supply this way. And I don't think we're getting any further over than where we're at. Oh, that is beautiful. Okay, so that's where that needs to reside. So let's, you know what? Let's just go ahead and put these together and see what we get. Worst case scenario is we don't get anything worthwhile. So we're going to set this out of the way. We'll set that behind me. We're going to lay these out. Boot our fan this way. So I rated this out of another case that I had laying around because, you know, that was what I needed to do. I needed to rate it from another case instead of spending money on Amazon for something I had laying around. Took a little bit of heat shrink to tidy cables up. And then we got on Amazon and we ordered some USB DIY connectors. There you go. There's part number and product number. And this is what we received. And you're like, and I bought stuff with connectors on it or with casings in case I decided to build something else in the future, uh, such as a USB charging port on my slot car run stand, which we'll do a build video on. And we're going to do some USB port building. So we're going to fire up our soldering iron, get out our handy dandy 604010 solder of the is this 029 or 032? 032 variety. Just remember, a little goes a long ways. And if you have a solder fume extractor, I do highly recommend using it. I'm using my PC as my solder fume extractor tonight. Please don't do this. It's a do as I say, not as I do moment. And I see that we've bumped our camera once or twice here and totally goofed our shots. And USB 2.0 wiring diagram. So, sometimes these are numbered. No, we want to make sure we get this right because we actually don't want to tear up devices that we plug in. And if we look at it with the port, okay. So when we hold it up and this is to the top, because we're using the female port here, the wire pin is 1, 2, 3, 4. You know what? Let's get something besides my fat finger to do this with. Okay, let's get something that everybody can actually see. That is pin 1, pin 2, pin 3, and pin 4. So pin 1 is going to be a red wire. Pin 2 is a white wire, which is your data negative. Red is 5-volt power. And green is your data positive. Black is your ground. So we're going to go ahead and lay both of these ports out on the workbench. Don't know where masking tape disappeared to. Oh, actually, I do. And this is a neat little trick that I learned a while back. We're not going to solder on our mat, or better yet, we're not going to solder on anything. We're going to pull out our trusty hands of helping. Still trying to figure out exactly what they're helping because it ain't me seeing. And so we're going to hold this the right way. And we're going to clamp these 180 degrees out. So now we're going to go in here and do a little. We're probably. Yep, no, we need more on that one. Uh, I'll be right back. I gotta go grab a knife because I was using it in a different room. Well, ain't nothing quite like walking out and finding out that your 3D printer has decided to quit printing. So I just went ahead and turned it off since it wasn't doing its job. And you know, that's probably not the right way to strip these wires, but you know, it's the way we're going to do it tonight. So we've exposed a little bit of additional wiring here. Pull back the shielding. And then all we want is a little bit. And because we got the soldering iron up, we'll do it that way. Do one at a time. And I know what you're saying. Ain't that hot? No, because this cools off, or it's just a little bit of plastic, and it's just getting it soft where you can take a fingernail, grab it, pull it on down. Just like Bob Barker. Come on down. You know, I guess it would help if I wasn't stabbing the camera with my soldering iron or anything of that nature. Stand our glue bottle back up. Man, there's no need to be tool envious over here. I've owned probably a half dozen sets, and this particular set was a Christmas gift. All right, so now that we've got wire stripped back on everything, we're going to make sure all of our wires got a good little bit of solder on them here in just a second. You know what? For right now, we'll set that port off to the side. Do that. do. And Dr. Santa, man, I ain't gonna lie, I wish I had more space myself, 'cause I am relatively space constrained over here. Considering my working conditions, I feel like I get a lot accomplished. You know what? I may be getting old, and I may be getting blind. One of these days, I'm gonna have like a really big garage. One of these days. All right, now that we've got that done, go ahead and tin our pins. All right, trying to get a little closer here for everybody. I don't exactly have the best camera equipment for that. All right, just a little dabble do. Well, Fred Flintstone it. A little dabble do. The same could also be said about my other habits. A little dabble do. All right. So now that we have that set, I'm going to take this and hold it right like so. Nope, we're going to flip that over 180. And let's do some solder work here. And our pin colors, as we needed them, are red, white, green, black. So we're going to go ahead and lay everything out in that order. And before we do that, we're going to reach and go ahead and grab our trusty box of mixed small pieces of heat shrink. There's better options out there than what I've done. You can buy it in bulk a lot cheaper. This just works for some of the small projects I work with. And just go ahead. Yep, perfect. And we'll take and shrink our heat shrink into 2 pieces because we don't need all of one for what we're working on here. So we'll take those 2 pieces. We'll take that one. And I'm kind of liberal with heat shrink because of what its intended purpose is. I mean, last thing I want is 2 pieces of wire coming in contact with each other that don't need to come in contact. Now, because we're putting heat shrink on everything, we don't want to get stuff too terribly hot right off the rip. Heat rip. What did the pants say when the fat kid squatted? Rip. God, that was horrible. But I'm a fat guy. Yeah, 30-year tool collection will do that to you, though. Okay. So, I guess we'll start with this port. Reach in here. Eliminate some of that. And alright, first wire is soldered. So we're going to take, give it a twist. And with this connection here, we're going to shrink that tip. You don't need a lot, a little when a little will do. That's what she said. Oh, that white wire did not solder good. So let's go back and try it again. Seeing that. And you don't need a lot of heat. You just want quick heat. Now, that is done. Now we're going to wait to heat shrink those until they've passed final inspection and testing. So now, and I worked from 4 to 1 because it made some of these pins that much easier to deal with. Alright, so kind of sit here and get our wires situated. Alright, awesome. And let's go ahead and tin our connector. Hey, you. How about you just go like right there? That'd be great. Yeah, if you could just move out of my way, that would be great. Alright. So, oh, tweezers, where did you disappear to? Ah, there you are. So, you'll notice that I'm a right-handed person of interest, but I can reach and do stuff with my left. One wire, two wire, three wire. Hop, yeah. As expected, we had a wire come loose. Now I am using a pair of fine point angled tweezers, but I'd say about any pair of tweezers would do the trick here. You gotta have the exact tool, and this just makes it easier for me. Voila! 2 USB ports are soldered together. Give that just a moment to cool. Go ahead and pop that bad boy out. But guess what? I did it. I totally did it. Anybody see the problem? Because I see a problem. I see a big problem. I need this. We can back up here. I need this. That's to poke out there. That won't clear the power supply. Possibly. You know what? We're going to see. If we can't. See, folks, this is the joys of what I do. Sometimes you goof up. Like so. Well, what we're going to do is remove the casing, pass the inner assembly through here, push the tabs back down on the casing, and then push the casing back in place. So yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do. I mean, I hope this just proves that mistakes are made. And within reason, there's no mistake that you can't fix. Ooh, that was almost dangerous. About took a fingertip out with a blade of a screwdriver. And, haha, you know what? When we put that back together, we're going to put a touch of glue in there. And we're going to take these and kind of give them the old square it back up. Close enough for government work. So now, we'll take this, pass it through here, and this slides in, right like so. Now, we take our screwdriver, make sure everything's in place, and during all that, I knocked a wire loose. So we'll go ahead and fix that real quick. So now we'll take and put this red wire back in place. And voila, we now have a USB port assembled. I mean, we could almost make the Avengers assemble joke here, but no need to. And for right now, we're going to slide that up. And then we're going to slide that up over it for the time being. And slide that up in there, like so. And now, you know what? We got another USB port to deface. And voila. Well, we'll press those back together once we're done. Slide that in there right like so. There's that. Use our screwdriver. Press those back down in place. And now one thing that we want to make sure is that when we look at both ports, that both ports are facing the same direction. You know, I wouldn't want one port facing one way and another one facing a different direction. So go ahead and slide our heat shrink up on. Now I chose a heat shrink for the outer that'll actually retain the USB socket in place. Now once that's done, we'll put a drop of super glue in there. Once everything's got an official home. So now that my controller port, or yeah, the controller port mod is done. Man, as much as I want to test that, it's not feasible. Flame must be acquired. So I shall return in 30 seconds or less. Alright, so we're back, like the McRib, only for a limited time. We'll go ahead and start shrinking some heat shrink here. This works like I want it to. We'll get a pretty good shrinkage out of it. I'll just take and seal that to that. Well, we want a nice clean appearance. Sometimes things don't work like you want them to. One thing we knew we needed was a good tight fit. That's what he said. Hee. That was the reason why we made the cut, and we're actually fixing to see it in action. As we slide our power supply back that way. So that cut allows these to be passed through right like so. Figure out which one of these wants to go where, which is 1 and 2. Now, what we're going to do, we haven't hooked any of that up yet. So we'll do that here in just a moment. Now, this is where I would actually recommend a digital volt ohm meter. So you can test your work. Alright, so we're good on that, we're good on that. So now, reach in here, point it out because you ain't gonna be able to read it. Up top is the power switch, or the power LED, which is our red light, our power switch, and our hard disk LED if we was using it. And then our reset button. So when we plug these in, I'm going to start with our LED, and we're going to catch the top pin. And I know some people are going to go back and watch this in the future and they're going to go, why are you using tweezers? For your viewing pleasure. Because you can watch fat fingers, but why? And now all of these, I use connectors that was labeled out of a different PC. These connectors are available. They're a DuPont pin connector with like a 2.4 millimeter header. And the way these are set up is all the wires tuck nice and neat right up here around this post. So they're cable managed out of the way. So now those are done. Those are done. Like our tweezers back over here, and come on. Let me put that in there. Okay. Well, next thing's next. We'll do this because I don't want to fight this much more than I have to. So on some of this where screws have a specific home that they belong to, I will take a piece of masking tape and place those screws in the object that they belong in. In this case, it was the, oh yeah, come to Papa. That way they don't disappear on you. My workbench has a unique way of eating screws on the regular. I am trying to watch what's going on screen while I'm really building this through the computer. Alright. So what we've done is we've now got our USB ports in a permanent home and secured, which is one of the last details I needed to fix. And I'm going to print some ends to go on USB cables. um, that look like that just slide over a normal USB cable. Okay. So now that that's done, and that's in place and slid all the way over that way, let's go ahead and wire the power supply. Now the power supply winds up getting trapped between things. So we're going to start at the bottom and work our way to the top. And the first thing that gets plugged up is our 4-pin power for the CPU. And because it's the hardest of all of them to get to, we'll go ahead and there we go. So what we do is we've got all our wires. They tuck down. Oh, wait. That's right. Those. Clamp those down in there. And since we're only using one SATA port right now, we're going to just tuck this other one. You know, we got to be careful. We got a 24 pin that we got to hide wires to too. So for now, we're just going to, once that's mostly in place, we're going to tuck it out of the way. And our 4-pin CPU power has a specific plug on it. Make sure that this color-coded plug is in the right slot. If not, it can cause serious damage. We would hate to damage our brand new any entertainment system that we are in the process of putting together. So now, go ahead and plug that in back here. Now, if you don't plan on upgrading in the future and you got a pigtail like that, you can trim it flush. This is not one that I wish to do so with, and you'll soon see why. Or, well, in the future, there's mods to come. So we'll leave it at that. So our last cable to plug in is that bad boy right there. And now, we'll tuck those in right like so. And yep, this is where everything gets rather clunky. Because the way this lays in is until I get these cables shortened, the wire has to remain under this level all the way until we get back here beside the power supply. We're going to bring it up and tuck it back down right there. And, you know, this is not the cleanest of my installs by any means, but it is what we got to work with. So, alright, all our power's in place. That is routed to where it'll do its job. Go ahead and drop our video card in. Make sure it's secure. We'll pull that back out when we put our last two missing fasteners in place. And take this, plug in our SATA power. Maybe. Oh, you want to be that way about it. I see, says a fat guy. And then plug that in. right like so. And that just resides until I can get a bracket printed to mount it, basically, that sits on top of the graphics card and just kind of holds us out over to the end. We will just, for now, you know what? It's temporary. It's not a permanent solution. But I want this to kind of be held down and out of the way. See, this is, like I say, this isn't, I said 90% build. Yeah, I probably should have, but now that I have everything in its final home and everything properly mounted, hey, there we go. That's not proper, but it's mounted. Beggars can't be choosers. Winners can only be winners. That's not true. Send all your hate mail to afatguy@gmail.com. All right. So now you're all probably wondering, well, does the top of the case fit? And wouldn't you know, I've got news for you. I guess first things first, we'll go ahead and place that back where it goes. And it's Dremel time. I'm not messing with it tonight. And for those with an ASMR experience, uh, you're welcome to mute me at this moment. I'm not muting this. Well, I either have a connection going south or a Dremel tool that's dying. Rip. Pour one out for the Harbor Freight Dremel tool. She's been a good one to me. Built more than its fair share of slot car chassis. Alright, Dremel, I don't need but like a couple more minutes out of you and you can die peacefully. And I can hear you all now in the comments section. Oh no, he's cutting on an OG 1985 NES case. Yeah, and I don't care. I took what was deemed a dead console and revived it. We're going to actually build something out of the guts that came out of this thing. So just be patient with me. We got goodies coming in the future. Got lots of goodies coming in the future. And you know what? There's a lot more there that I need to remove. Appreciate it, Retro Red. We're getting there. go. Alright, let's do a little cleanup here. Get rid of our excess plastic that we've generated. Keyword is on excess, just like I like to live, in excess. God, how many more bad references are we going to get this stream? Alright. A little more trimming, a little more scraping. And, you know, there's plastic that hides these crimes. That's what makes it that much better. That, I mean, is it really a crime if it was hidden and it was intentional? If I could go to jail for cutting plastic, I'd be in there for life. Alright. Now, take that. Drop it back in place. Perfect. Little fan breathing hole. We'll clean that up in finals before paint. Put that back in place. Hang our Dremel back up where it goes. And there's that. And, you know, I don't need you in there, piece of plastic. Not like yet. I realize that, you know, we're going to make sure there ain't no additional goodies that's going to fall out on it. And, you know, I said at the beginning of the stream we was going to put a fan in it. We are. But I want this. So the case, the top fits. It does. Problem is, there's like a 1/4 inch gap that wasn't there from the factory. So you're going to go, oh no, but the top really didn't fit. Well, if I'd used something besides a flex ATX power supply, we wouldn't have that issue. I've already cut and leveled as much in here as I can to get what we need out of it. But I see some additional areas to clearance, and we're going to go ahead and do it. Pair of flush cutters for the win. Voila and voila. And now, because we only needed one slot here, we've got a nice perfectly flush back section back here. Hee back. So now, there's that. And I have two options for the trim ring. We can sit here and build one, or I can sit here and draft one up in a CAD. So is this trim ring 3D printed or made from flat plastic? Jack, give me a direction. Because we're probably going to live stream it no matter what we do. Yep. Tell you what, I'm going to go grab the potential 40mm fan candidate. We have this big 80, but let's be real. Where am I going to mount this? that's got sufficient space, and if we can be real, it's almost as tall as the entire case anyway. When this thing is in use, I do open the front door for ventilation. Really, it's that's kind of tricky to say on that one, Dr. Santa, on which option is better. It's which skill set do I get to use? One is how straight of a line can I draw with a X-Acto knife blade down the edge of a ruler at precisely 250 thousandths wide. Sounds like just an absolute blast, which I'm capable of. Or the other one is I sit here with a ruler, I take measurements, and I play in CAD for about 20 minutes. And then we end the stream after we fumble with this fan for a few more minutes. But I do see about where, if I put a fan in it, I think it's going to sit right here and exhaust out back here. And we'll exhaust it out of the top, like right up here. You know what? Let's go grab a 40 millimeter fan in the vent that we found on Tinkercad, or not Tinkercad, Thingiverse, and see what we can do with it. Yep, CAD will probably win out here on that. Alright, so now, since this fan and adapter, alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to take and just tape that in place. So now that we have a fan, okay, so I actually got a little bit of wiggle room here. Take the top half of our case out of the way, set it off screen for the time being, kick some excess plastic out like we did, and Nope, that ain't gonna fit. I mean, it would if it was condensed. Yeah, we'll probably cat it up here in just a moment then. Shouldn't take terribly long because I already know most of the measurements. Everything's 40 thousandths thick. And not every oh god. No. Let's hope we didn't kill the tip on our soldering iron. And not every task requires a power tool. And if you're concerned about tearing a fan up, which we're just using one of these, which is rated at DC 24 volts at 10th of an amp. Uh, Based on the testing I'm done, it works just fine at 12 volts. And actually relatively quiet. Now, will running the fan undervolted be the best thing for it? Probably not. But if it dies, we'll replace it with the appropriate knock to a 40 millimeter fan. Which is on its way, just not here yet. This would have been a lot quicker if I had just went ahead and done what I should have done. Oh, I might find some kind of music or something like that to put on here. Or put an earbud in and listen to it elsewhere. Hey, there we go. Perfect. Right. I can agree with either of those. I'm gonna see what I can find for royalty-free 8-bit and go from there, because that would be cool. But I do like that I now have a fan shroud mount that I can modify in CAD and kind of mark out a spot here. It could, but I'd, I'd rather it vent out the back, because I'd rather the air intake be the game door. So, that would be the air inlet. It's nice, big, wide open hole for cool, fresh air. Um, Plus, where this thing is residing at is actually inside a cubby hole. Uh, and the more, the longer it sits there, the higher chance of overheating I get. So now we'll take that. So what we'll do for mock-up purposes, and this is a case of you'll plan it out 3 or 4 times and then you'll finally make cuts. So there's that. And we're not trying to be super fancy here. We just want this to remain in place while we set everything in place. And that resides right like that. So something that we ain't seen much of is just how all this rides in the back. So with everything where it belongs, we'll put our piece of trim back on back here. See, that's where all that's going to sit within reason. And let's be real. Room was a pleasant thought at the beginning of this project, and the more we've worked on it, the less and less of it there is. Okay, so now that we've got that taped in place where it goes in the back, come around to the front, and we'll just put a piece of tape in right like so. So if you're kind of curious, what we're working with here. Yep. Sorry for those getting nauseated due to my camera. So that fan, where it's at, looks like it's going to clear. And we kind of get a good view of how the inside of this clears. We look over on left hand side, we can see that if we didn't have all the lowered ridges down through the middle of the case, I think we wouldn't have the issues we have with the case not closing, because everything's just dead on top of it down through there. That fits quite nicely in there. That hard drive, I actually like kind of where it laid at. See the GPU, and that we got just a smidge of clearance in there. I'm gonna say 1/4 inch or less. Which, the GPU is kind of where I considered the top of the case. Uh, we do have plenty of room for a taller CPU cooler, LOL. Um, but I think we're going to call it right there for the evening. And we'll come back and draw a bunch of stuff up in CAD on the next episode of the NES. Um, now we know, and we'll come back and then we'll complete a few smaller details, such as mounting the fan. We're going to go ahead and get our fan mount reprinted. And I may try and put a slightly bigger vent on it than what's there. Um, it's kind of a tricky situation because I could almost just mount the 40mm fan to the back here and get away with it. Which would give it a lot more airflow on an outtake. So, you know, if you got any further ideas for it here, just leave me a comment down below, and we'll see you on the next go around of Hobby Time with the Captain on the 82nd Legion. Oh, yeah. And before we go, we got to get a picture of the old everything assembled type situation. We're going to blue tape it to kind of keep the case together. Or, you know, I've already outroed this once, and we're still hot. We're still working. That's unfortunately how these projects go. So I'll turn that over right like so, and we're just going to drop a couple of screws in the old case. Uh, just kind of something to hold stuff in place. Not trying to make anything super fancy. Just kind of want it all to mix together and mesh. Yeah. And we'll throw a third screw in there for all the giggles because it's on the power supply side. Like that one just a touch more. And then we'll round up the rest of our K-screws when we come back to complete this project on the 82nd Legion. You know, our fancy little NES, any entertainment system. We bring the power to you. It will play quite a few games. Uh, we're going to do some benchmarking and stuff in the near future on this bad boy. There's a few NES builds out there on the internet, Dr. Santa. I actually referenced one or two of them for parts to kind of get an idea where I needed to go. But the USB ports on the front, I'm really happy with how those turned out today. Once we get everything final situated there, those will be even better. And we'll go ahead and get our spacer ring built and drawn up in CAD. We might go live for a little bit tomorrow evening while we draw that up. Uh, but we're not going to, I'm actually not going to work all evening. I know some people wouldn't mind if I did, but I got other things that I wish to handle this evening. And because we just want to make sure that nothing does anything stupid. Put a piece of tape there to hold that in place. Really happy with how most of this has turned out. When we get ready to play it, we open the door, and then once we've turned it off, we just close it up, and it looks like a regular NES sitting on the shelf. I love it. The little trim ring, depending on how we paint it in the near future, do I go with my own personal colors, or do I just give it I kind of want to go for the old neon red consoles that they had back in the 80s. I think it would be real cool. The neon red and the white and the black almost sounds real spicy. Um, but till the next episode of the 82nd Legion, this is your captain. We've had an absolute blast this evening, and we'll see you on the next episode of NESPC The Build.